On July 1st, 2022, I became the principal of a community that was deeply angry, lost, and broken. Earlier that spring, tensions between students, adults, and the broader community had come to a head. What descended upon Lincoln Middle School was chaos and devastation. When I arrived, I knew that just over 30% of the staff had resigned and that many of our students had lost faith and trust in the very community that was supposed to educate and care for them. I also knew I had to hire a new assistant principal, new secretaries, and new teachers. However, there were many other things I did not know. I didn't know the students, staff, the building. I didn't even know where to grocery shop. I had just moved up here from Boston the night before. So on that first day of school, September 6th, I put on my black dress shoes, I buckle my black belt, I slide on my favorite black blazer, crisp, ready to take this year on. By the end of that week, I had ditched my blazer for a vest and my dress shoes for gym shoes because I was clocking 10 to 20,000 steps every single day, walking through crumbling facilities, breaking up fights, subbing in classrooms, de-escalating adults, fielding angry parent phone calls, questioning, how are you keeping my child safe? I had a steady stream of students out of my door, each retelling the same story of discrimination and not feeling seen. Then I had the students who would simply question, why are you wasting your time here? You went to Harvard. You could be anywhere else. I would end my days late at night reading the hundreds of emails that I would receive on a daily basis, each reading anywhere from, I'm resigning, to, you are not doing enough. By early October, I began to feel internal cracks. I was anticipating a family event, and I was dreading what I was going to hear. I was going to hear about all the ways that I was not keeping kids safe. I was going to hear about all the ways that children were not learning. I was going to hear about all the ways that I was failing their kids. So I dragged myself into a preparation meeting for that event with my boss at the time. He really was trying his best to help me. He began by saying, well, we can bring someone to design documents, help you design systems, stay in the background while you... I had had enough. So I stood up, looked him in his eyes, and I said, I'm done with your documents. What I need are people in classrooms, people who believe in kids, people who are willing to authentically collaborate with each other, people who understand the arduous process of transforming a school. And with that, I walked away and used the very little time I had left to regain my composure and face the families that were already walking through those doors. By that second week in November, I needed to go back home. Once I landed in Chicago, I drove straight to Humboldt Park, the neighborhood that made me who I am today. The neighborhood that taught me all about how social ills can break you, yet also taught me all about the ways that community, care, and love can heal you. So in my introspection, I realized that there was no other way forward than to start picking up the pieces one by one. Lincoln Middle School was broken, and I could not do this work alone. Back in Portland, I assembled a team and we drafted up a new plan. We needed to move forward through restoration in order to heal, but more explicitly through restorative practices. The plan included hiring a culture and climate coordinator to lead the charge. The plan included collaborating with families through the parent-teacher organization and with a group of Somali mothers. The plan included designing a behavior response protocol that ensured that students had due process and alternative ways to repair. It also ensured that educators felt supported and reconnected. The plan included working with our community through what it means to repair through restorative practices, and not just in the classrooms with students, but with each other. Because how can we expect children to engage in the act of restoration, of vulnerability, of introspection, if we as adults can't do it? I remember the end of my first year. I was with a group of kids waiting for the late bus, and they were having a hoot impersonating their teachers. And then it was my turn. One of them says, "Hey, Mix Ayala, where are you going? What class do you have next? Do you need a pass? Take a deep breath, we're going to circle up." The bus arrives and they start loading the bus, and one of them turns to me and says, "But for real, Mix Ayala, I'm glad you stayed. Things were really hard, and they're getting better." For the next few years, we continued to grow the work of restorative practices through the intentional collaboration and celebration of students, where their voices took shape in space. We continued to grow our work of restorative practices through the intentional ways in which we taught and collaborated with each other as adults. We continue to grow our work in restorative practices through the intentional internalization of the ethos of restoration. Culture began to follow form. Earlier this October, I was doing a last walk through our building during our community campus night event. And I was in a hurry because I needed to make it to a practice session for this very talk. And so I started in the third floor, made my way down. And I also had a pep in my step. We went from 332 behavior referrals during my first September as principal to 40 behavior referrals this past September. As I was walking down the hall, I noticed an affirming I am poem, and I began to read it. And simultaneously, I recalled a time that I had to wedge myself in between two students to break up a fight in that same hall. I continued to walk down the stairs, and in the distance, I heard the laughter of students, parents, and teachers. And I remembered the time that I heard the worried footsteps of over 500 staff and students evacuating through that same stairway due to a fire. Once I got to the ground floor, I caught a glimpse of a green t-shirt, the one that our students wear when they are facilitating courageous conversation circles. The space where they use their words for the greater good. And I also remembered the time that I was walking through a similar hall, fighting back tears after a contentious meeting, ready to give up on this principalship. And that was when I noticed a painting I hadn't seen. That painting read, "The words you speak become the house you live in." And it's not just the power of your words, it's the power of your thoughts, it's the power of your feelings that could lead you to an appreciation of the power of restoration. See, restorative practices isn't something new. It's something inherent in you. It's in that moment when you reach for someone's hand, connection. It's in the moment when you sit in reflection, introspection. It's in the moment when you turn to that person and you say, "I am sorry." Transformation. Restorative practices is connection, introspection, and transformation. Now, I do feel the weight of needing to explain all the parts, all the facets that make up restorative practices. But what I'll leave you with is this. The words that we speak at Lincoln Middle School are the words of restoration. The thoughts that we think at Lincoln Middle School are the thoughts of restoration. The feelings that we feel at Lincoln Middle School are the feelings of restoration. Restorative practices are a catalyst for transformation. And in a world yearning for healing, hope, and love, there are no better hearts to lead that change than ours. Thank you.